News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
KVNU News Time is 5:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update. Firefighters were called to a shed fire in the Island neighborhood this afternoon. The blaze was reported near 48 South, 500 East, just after 3 p.m. According to emergency radio traffic, first crews on the scene reported a detached shed fully engulfed and also heavy smoke in the area. Firefighters from the Logan City Fire Department were able to quickly knock down the flames while protecting adjacent structures. The shed was destroyed. No injuries were reported. The cause of the fire is under investigation. Following a nearly 8-hour wait, a skier who was injured after being nearly completely buried in an avalanche in Neff's Canyon in the Uinta Wasatch Cache National Forest was finally transported off the mountain and taken to the hospital. The incident originally happened before noon Wednesday, with officials saying the avalanche was approximately 200 feet wide and up to 3 feet deep when it hit in the Thomas Fork area of the canyon. The man injured was skiing alone when he was caught up in the avalanche and buried up to his chest for 45 minutes before an off-duty EMT with the Unified Fire Authority heard the man crying for help. The unidentified man suffered a broken femur and an arm injury with hypothermia, a concern due to his time being buried in the snow. Search and rescue teams were dispatched to bring the man off the mountain due to the weather, making it impossible for a helicopter to get to the area. Once conditions improved, equipment issues caused a further delay until the skier was finally evacuated at around 7 p.m. The EMT stayed with the injured person until he eventually was evacuated. No one else was caught in the avalanche. With so much snow falling across northern Utah over the last week, avalanche activity is high in the area. On Tuesday, a backcountry skier was rescued after being caught in an avalanche in Little Cottonwood Canyon. And the Lone Park Police Department is investigating a situation where a man allegedly approached a student walking home from school Wednesday afternoon. According to authorities, the student reported the driver coming up next to them in Highland. The suspect then reportedly opened their door and told the child their mother had sent them to pick them up for the day. Police said the student declined, ran back to the school grounds, and immediately reported the situation. The suspect was described as a young white male with blonde or bleached hair driving a light-colored four-door sedan. Officials with Lone Peak explained that the child did the right thing. Police said this is a great reminder to have a safety plan in place with your children and to discuss what to do in a situation like this. KVNU News Time is 5:08. KVNU weather for tonight. Partly cloudy, much colder, low near zero. Partly cloudy, areas of fog in the morning, then patchy fog in the afternoon. High temperature near 20. Partly sunny, then clearing, high in the low 20s on Saturday. It's been to 26. Right now it's 23 at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by the Duct Hunter. Clothes dryer vents can get clogged with lint, and birds can even build nests in them. Let the Duct Hunter clean them out for you. Call 435-770-4813. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
Get your news from KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
High school sports are as American as apple pie. And going to a game or meet is a chance to see the stars of tomorrow shine today. But as anybody who's ever attended a high school sporting event in Utah knows, you can't have the stars without the stripes. High schools are currently looking for new officials in almost every sport. Who looks good in stripes? Anybody looking for a way to stay connected to a sport they love. If you like the idea of giving back to your community while earning a few extra bucks, chances are you'd look good in stripes too. We want to hear from you. We need to hear from you. No officials means no games. No stripes means no stars. And what kind of America would that be? Utah needs more high school officials. Go to highschoolofficials.com to sign up or learn more. That's highschoolofficials.com.
I was in the hospital with my son for 18 months.
When he got injured, I wasn't prepared, but I knew I had to be strong.
When I was told about John's injury, I was in complete shock. I just remember rushing into his room and giving him a big hug and letting him know I was there.
These veterans and families are just a few of the heroes we serve at Homes for Our Troops. For thousands of severely injured veterans, everyday life is filled with barriers.
It was really the little things throughout the house. Counters that you can't roll up to.
I had to drag my wheelchair down steps.
I want to help, but he is so determined.
At Homes for Our Troops, we build specially adapted custom homes with features like wheelchair access, roll-in showers, and automatic door openers that allow them to function independently and focus on their recovery and family.
This house is freedom.
It's hope. It's a new beginning.
This house has given me my family back.
To learn more, visit hfotusa.org.
Welcome to KVN News for the People. It is normally hour 2, but hour 1 and our only hour today. Happy to turn some time over here on KVN News airwaves to Logan High Bass. It's, high school sports don't get the attention that they once did, and it's one of the things I'm most proud of about the Cache Valley Media Group and everyone here that puts a lot of effort into this, which I have to say is not me. Well, occasionally I'll fill in here and there, but for the most part, there's a whole team here at the Media Group that is dedicated to covering high school sports, not just stories at CacheValleyDaily.com and photo galleries, but also the live broadcast of these games. Takes a lot of work, a lot of equipment set up, a lot of travel sometimes. So very cool that we're able to bring this to Cache Valley and continue to do so again when many other areas this type of thing has come to an end. Still a lot to talk about, even though it is a short show today with only 1 hour. We will be extending things into tomorrow's show as far as the news of the week. Cache County Clerk and Auditor Jess Bradfield, who this week announced that he would be leaving the office in 90 days after a second contentious council meeting played out this week. Bradfield will be joining us at 4 o'clock tomorrow to talk about his decision, which, as I understand it, happened right after the council meeting. And a few hours later, Bradfield came back and tendered his resignation, saying he'd be leaving in 90 days. Bradfield told me ahead of tomorrow's interview that this allows for his team to get ready for a transition, but also allows the Cache County Republican Party some time. With Shelley Giddens, chair of the party, said, that 90 days gives them plenty of time to, without screwing up anybody's holiday plans, plan for and carry out a special election to replace Bradfield. So this, of course, comes at the end of what has been quite a year in county politics. And as I've said many times, I hold no one completely innocent in everything that's happened. I think that there's a lot of blame that could go around, but unfortunately what it seems to come down to, in my opinion still, is a clashing of some egos here and there. And unfortunately, I'll be clear, I've been a fan of Cache County Clerk and Auditor Jess Bradfield because he came into the office and fired things back up as far as audits go. In fact, he'll have some new audits at the first of the year before he leaves office. We'll talk about those a little bit tomorrow as well when he's here in the studio. But he also had some fresh ideas and has met with a lot of, at times, hard to explain opposition from the council. And I know change is hard, but also I've been talking about and covering politics long enough to know it when I see it. Sometimes that don't you know who I am ego gets in the way of trying new things. And I think there's been a lot of that in county politics the last year. But new members of the council coming in January, and hopefully everybody can just get back to doing the county's business with those new faces on the council. We'll see. But again, Cache County Clerk and Auditor Jess Bradfield will be joining us tomorrow on the show. We'll get things underway here today with our contribution to dialing down the temperature out there in our news cycles and combating some of the heated rhetoric and even panic that's been expressed to me at times by relatives, friends, listeners to the show, that sometimes just hearing about the news raises their anxiety. So we present it to you in a different way. It's time for your headlines with Smooth Jazz. Governor Cox in the news again this week with a big announcement. The governor announced what he's calling the Skills First initiative for state employment opportunities. The shortest way to describe this is the state, under Cox's direction, moving away from what for decades has been just a given, a requirement to work for the state of having a bachelor's degree. That, the governor said, has been a barrier to entry in many jobs in which people with other types of degrees or even just a high school degree would be perfect fits based on their experience. So the governor has announced what he called a revolutionary change to state hiring practices. In the announcement, the governor said degrees have become a blanketed barrier to entry to many jobs. Instead of focusing on demonstrated competence, focus too often has been on that piece of paper, the degree, he means. We're changing that. In the executive order, Cox directs state agencies to eliminate requirements for bachelor's degrees in some of their employment recruitment efforts. And the governor said eliminating the bachelor's degree requirements will broaden access to highly qualified talent. He doesn't mention this, but I'm going to. It also synchronizes perfectly with something that began in Herbert's administration and Cox has doubled down on, which is the goal of moving every job that can be realistically moved to remote work. They're shooting for a target of 30% of state jobs that they believe could be done remotely. The reason they want to do this is because it offers the opportunity for someone in, say, Rich County to work for the state. Coupled with this new announcement that a bachelor's degree isn't required on some jobs, that does open up a lot of opportunities. And previous to all of this, if you didn't live in Salt Lake, if you didn't have a bachelor's degree, working for the state wasn't an option. According to the most recent census numbers, by the way, about 24% of Utah's population has a bachelor's degree as of 2020, the last time data was collected, while another 11% have received a graduate or professional degree of some sort. And that is going to be interesting. One downside of this for the governor, it does put him kind of on the outs a bit with the higher education community. So we'll see where that goes. The governor has previously been a very outspoken critic of President Biden's forgiveness of student loans program, which is still caught up in courts right now, though expected to survive those challenges. I wouldn't say this is Cox moving in an anti-higher ed direction, because his administration still has a goal of increasing college enrollment and college graduation rates at the same time. I think these two efforts can work simultaneously. So we'll see where it goes. A fascinating conversation happening on this week's episode of Mormonland, the Salt Lake Tribune. Well, this is kind of a cultural podcast that someone that has been around forever in Utah does each week. Peggy Fletcher Stack, the religion reporter for the Tribune. And the story itself is a fun but also kind of enlightening look at marriage, especially if you're out there listening right now and you're newlywed or just a few years in to being married. This might be right up your alley because it's the story of a young newlywed couple got married and entered into a year-long backpacking honeymoon. And the woman is now an author. Rachel Ruckert wrote a book about this, a memoir, called it East Winds, A Global Quest to Reckon with Marriage. And she grew up a Latter-day Saint and had marriage as a top goal for herself, and was lucky enough to meet someone she loved and get engaged. She talks a lot in the podcast about her anxiety headed into the wedding and things like that. And then the book itself focuses on what she learned over this year-long experiment. Where they didn't backpack constantly for a year, to say the least, but they made it part of their year-long honeymoon to backpack as often as they could and visit many different places, traveling from Peru to India, Thailand, Spain. And throughout it all, she said she learned a lot about herself and her relationships, her past, and even her faith. The book is out just this week, East Winds, A Global Quest to Reckon with My Marriage, which Fletcher Stack says in the podcast is, in the end, a very optimistic recapturing of those early years of marriage, but also some of the challenges that come along later in a marriage and how to meet them in a productive way. NASA in the news this week, well, for a couple of reasons. There was that successful trip to the moon and then the return of the craft itself. That's actually what the whole mission was about. Could they get this craft back? And we did. That was earlier this month. This week, today, in fact, NASA has a spacecraft that will be today getting the closest we've ever been to one of the most volcanic places in the universe. The goal of this mission is to learn a lot about the forming of our own solar system and the planets, all of which were at a certain point long time ago, mostly lava. As things cooled, of course, the spinning and the gravity causes the circular planet or global planet shape to form. And as it cools, of course, life can begin if atmospheric conditions permit it. NASA says that the biggest mystery of the universe is probably going to be revealed by Jupiter's moon. And today, the Juno spacecraft will fly the closest to Jupiter's moon anything has ever been. The maneuver will be one of 9 flybys. It's going to keep orbiting this moon until it can't anymore. And it'll be made by the Juno craft over the next year. Will orbit this moon 9 times, and a year and a half. And 2 of the encounters will be from a distance of 930 miles, which is still a long ways, but very close to something this hot. So they'll be within 930 miles of the moon's surface. And what they're going to be capturing is glowing infrared images to take a look at, what is basically one of the brightest spots in the universe because of its the heat and energy it puts off, but also to get some look at what they believe are miles-high lava fountains that come off of this thing, dozens of miles high, in fact. And scientists will also use Juno's observations of how to learn more about what they call the network of volcanoes and the eruption system and how it interacts with Jupiter, with gravity and more. So the moon, by the way, caught scientists' interest early on in our exploration of space because it's being tugged by Jupiter's massive gravitational pull. It's the only moon, at least documented, that doesn't have an entirely predictable orbit, which is interesting because that's kind of a constant in our universe. So there you have it. Those are your headlines with smooth jazz, and we'll be back with more of KVNU's For the People right after this.
Want to stay healthy this holiday season? Want to make it to all those great parties? Want to just skip getting sick? Schedule a flu shot for you and your family. And while you're at it, get your COVID boosters too. Anyone age 5 and up can get one, and you're ready if it's been more than 2 months since your last dose. Keep the holidays healthy this year. Talk to a doctor or healthcare provider and visit uptodate.utah.gov to stay current on your immunizations.
This is Police Chief Gary Jensen from Logan City Police Department. A number of scams are occurring throughout our city and county. These scams are highly emotional and demand immediacy that you pay, and you pay now. They will say they are from the IRS, the Sheriff's Office, the Police Department, utility companies, medical facilities, or even romance scams. Slow down and diffuse by asking questions. Be careful. Hang up the phone call is the best thing that you can do, and don't become a victim.
I noticed that my central vision started to blur.
Figures that are usually straight started to distort to become wavy. What are these little dark spots with blurring that I'm seeing?
There's a blind spot like a blob over my vision now.
Is my vision lost forever?
Why did I wait so long to see a retina specialist?
Retinal disease can steal your eyesight, but it doesn't have to. Patients who seek care from a retina specialist in a timely manner have the best chance of preventing vision loss due to age-related macular degeneration or diabetic retinopathy. AMD symptoms to look out for are distortion or warping of straight lines, as well as blurred or loss of central vision. Patients with diabetic retinopathy should seek treatment if they notice the appearance of spots or floaters or blurred and distorted vision. Don't delay seeing a retina specialist. It's worth the visit to save your vision so you don't miss out on life's precious moments, like seeing your grandchild grow up, enjoying a sunset with that special someone, or reading a good book. Visit seeforalifetime.org.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. The state of Utah heads into the 2023 legislative session, kicking off towards the end of January, with a more than $1 billion budget surplus. Quick background on a surplus, the way it works here in Utah. A surplus is basically a miscalculation by legislative forecasters. And a lot of things can contribute to they project for the legislature how much money they're going to have to work with, because lawmakers are always budgeting a year in advance. So the budget we're operating under right now was actually debated and passed in March of 2021. It kicked in July 1st of 2021 and will expire. The funds that make up this budget will come to an end in June, the end of June 2022. So in January, they'll start debating the next year's budget, which will kick in July 1st, 2022. And because they're always a year ahead, or looking a year ahead, they rely entirely on forecasting. And budget analysts within the state have gotten really good at this because, one, about 90% of the budget is extremely predictable most of the time. There are things that can throw this off. The 2020 recession, no one predicted that. The economic conditions didn't forecast it, and that really threw a wrench in things. Luckily, it was very short-lived, pandemic-induced, and started to turn around within months, and we'd made kind of a full recovery within a year. So that didn't really hamper things too much. But in this case, what we're dealing with is that the growth, the strength of the economy has been much better for longer than these prognosticators predicted. And so they predicted a certain amount of revenue for the state to work with for their upcoming budget cycle debates that they'll kick off in January when the session begins. And they made those predictions probably, I don't have an exact date, but I would guess based on what I know of the legislative timeline each year, I would guess that most of those revenue numbers, those predictions, came to lawmakers this summer, last summer, or maybe even early fall. And then as we near the legislative session, they do an update on this, a final quarter update on this. And basically what it comes down to is that they undershot on how good the economy was going to be, both nationwide and here in Utah. So legislative leaders are looking at more than $1 billion in excess of what they had already planned to have to work with. And so the legislature, for better or worse, when they have the situation, what they decide to do is call that a surplus, not just absorb it into the budget. They call it a surplus, and then they decide first, are we going to absorb some of that into the budget that we're going to craft in the upcoming legislative session, or are we going to set it aside as a surplus and do something else with it entirely? Realizing that, you can't guarantee a surplus each and every year. So a lot of times what they'll do is take a surplus, put it in the rainy day fund for a future downturn year or a future surprise in lower revenue numbers than they expected. They'll also sometimes use it to fund one-time funding for projects that are overdue. The legislature, though they never talk about it, they are aware that we're basically underfunding our state in many ways: infrastructure, education, social services, and more. Operating on a shoestring budget is great when you can do it, but you do it for long enough and you start to let some things go, and it can get even more expensive to play catch-up at that point, especially when it comes to transportation, roads, and things like that. So the legislature is aware of this. So when there's a surplus, they have to decide, are we going to say we've got all of these overdue road projects that we know have to get done, but we haven't put the money aside for it yet because we're trying to always operate on a shoestring budget, and should we put some of the surplus towards that, get those projects over with and done? Some of that will happen, but in fact, I would guess the majority of the $1 billion plus surplus probably goes towards those types of things. What else might we see? Legislative leaders today released a priority list that gives a lot of hints. A priority list is just that. It's a list of where their minds are at from legislative leadership. Of course, they don't know how the final votes will go for 70-plus House members and 25-plus state senators, 29? I don't remember, actually. Wow, that surprises me. Well, we'll say 25 for the sake of argument. More than 20. They all have to vote, and committees, of course, can kill bills, kill line items in budgets and things like that. So there are a lot of unknowns, but when legislative leadership puts out a priority list, it tells you these are the things they're going to be hammering into the heads of every House lawmaker and every state senator from leadership's office. These things have to happen, and will be very angry and maybe even punish you if they don't. And that's an effective tool leadership has. That's why the Senate president and the House speaker are very powerful people when it comes to the legislative process. So what can we glean from this priorities list? Legislative leaders are looking at taking maybe around $400 million of this more than $1 billion surplus and putting it towards a tax cut. So basically that money would be set aside to pay for a future tax cut. These usually come in the form of tax credits of a sort. No one's going to be – the state doesn't like to just mail checks. So what it'll be is something that you have to voluntarily claim on your taxes in some way. Give you an example. The last time they did this, it was a tax cut for veterans in certain situations. So veterans who met these 2 or 3 metrics could apply for an additional tax cut on their annual taxes, and this money the state had set aside to pay for that tax cut would then reduce their tax burden or increase their tax return, whichever one. That's probably what they're going to do again. So it looks like about $400 million of the $1 billion plus will go towards that. Another $1.2 billion, so the majority of the surplus is going to go towards these cans that have been kicked down the road for a long time. Infrastructure projects, some water development, but with a goal of conservation, and, of course, transportation. So that's a good chunk of the surplus gone right there in the priorities list. But the Legislative Budget Committee has set some spending priorities of its own for lawmakers in the coming year. So with this, to be honest with you, it's closer to $2 billion surplus from revenue, though that's, again, a projection in and of itself. So they're banking on it being $1.5 billion. It's probably going to be closer to $2 billion. They know that. And so they're going to look at additional earnings to earmark for the following year. So maybe pass the proposed tax cuts this year, one that will be immediately effective, one that will apply to certain Utahns the next year. That might be another option. The big question everyone has is that we also know we have some cans that have been kicked down the road when it comes to education. So how much might be going to education? The governor has said he'd like to see a $6,000 raise for every state teacher in public schools. That would be $4,000 they'd get directly in additional salary for the year, and $2,000 that would go towards increasing their benefits for the year. The legislature has said they're not opposed to that, but there have been hints they want to tie it to something that's always been unpopular outside of Utah County here in Utah, a school voucher program. Poison pill it, basically, daring the teachers to oppose the bill and shoot down their own $6,000 raise, which if I'm a teacher and if teachers want my advice, call their bluff. Vouchers are not popular throughout 90% of the state. Call their bluff. But We'll see how that plays out during the session. There were no hints in this priorities list as released, whether or not they agreed with the governor or not. In fact, the proposal to give teachers a raise, which legislative leaders, again, previously said they do support, completely missing from this priorities list. And I would guess that's entirely intentional. So the committee did vote, the Appropriations Committee did vote in interim sessions throughout the year to put about $193 million in public education rainy day fund money aside that they can tap should there be a recession sometime soon. So they have invested in education that way, planning for the future, so they don't have to make drastic cuts like they did in 2009 if there is another deep recession. So that money's been set aside. They want to add to that a little bit. But again, big question mark on all this extra taxpayer money the legislature has to throw around in the upcoming budget process. How much of it, if any, will go towards increasing salaries to retain teachers better than we have been and attract new teachers in better than we have been? So we'll see. Short answer, no answer on how much is going to go towards education. But if you want to see the priorities list, I've linked to the press release from the state Senate on our Facebook page, and we'll be back right after the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 5:36. The news brought to you by Northern Steel Buildings. A 29-year-old Logan man has been sentenced to prison for causing a hit-and-run accident while under the influence. Christopher Joe Jr. was ordered to serve 0 to 5 years in prison after prosecutors noted that he had more than 25 cases involving drug-related crimes. Joe was sentenced Wednesday morning in First District Court. He previously accepted a plea deal in two of the most recent cases, pleading guilty to driving under the influence, a third-degree felony, and possession of psychotoxic chemicals, a Class B misdemeanor. Cache County Deputy Attorney Griffin Hazard said that Joe had a lengthy history of drug use, even when on probation. He continued to try and find ways of getting high. Hazard explained how Joe was involved in a hit-and-run crash on October 23, 2021. At the time, police reported that he was completely passed out behind the wheel. Defense attorney Danny Frazier asked the court to consider an alternative to prison. He explained how Joe could live with his sister and be on probation. Joe refused to comment during the sentencing hearing and stood quietly in front of the court. Judge Brian Cannell said he had reached a place where Joe had run out of options and he needed to protect the public. He noted how the defendant had failed to utilize any of the previous court-ordered treatment programs. The exact length of time Joe serves will be determined by the Utah Board of Pardons and Parole. Judge Cannell said he hoped Joe would take the time in prison to overcome his addictions. Prosecutors allege that the leader of a small polygamous group on the Arizona-Utah border helped orchestrate the escape of 8 girls he considered his wives from a group home where they were placed after authorities learned of what was happening. U.S. attorneys in Arizona allege in a superseding indictment filed this week that Sam Bateman, a self-described prophet, or self-declared prophet, that is, who is behind bars while he awaits trial, worked with 3 adult women that he also claims to be his wives to help the girls escape foster care. The document is the latest development in a federal case that has roiled Bateman's small community on the Utah-Arizona border. Boys high school hoops this afternoon at a St. George tournament. Logan beating Snow Canyon 57-48, and Bear River over Jerome 69-46 up the road at the Preston Indians Classic this afternoon. KVNU weather is brought to you by the Duct Hunter. Does a duct cleaning coupon in the mail seem too good to be true? Sometimes it is. Call the Duct Hunter at 435-770-4813 before you fall for an offer in the mail. Partly cloudy tonight, much colder, low near 0. Partly cloudy, areas of fog in the morning on Friday, patchy fog in the afternoon. High temperature only around 20 degrees tomorrow. And then near zero Friday night, partly sunny, then clearing on Saturday, high temperature in the lower 20s. It was 26 today. Right now it's 23. You can always get more news at CashValleyDaily.com.
In the beginning of time, in a land far away, hid a material in the earth so versatile that once discovered could give way to a century of innovation. From primitive weapons to railroads to buildings that scrape the skies. What is it? Steel. And without it, our world would look much different. Nothing is stronger or more versatile than steel. And if you want a building that'll stand the test of time, call Northern Steel Buildings at 435-677-7300 or visit northernsteelbuilding.com. That's northernsteelbuilding.com.
With rising gas prices, there's never been a better time than now to go electric. Come to Murdoch Volkswagen and see what all the hype is about when you test drive the new 2022 ID4. With a range of just under 300 miles, the ID4 has all the latest technology, including a digital dash, remote access, adaptive cruise, and blind spot monitoring. Come in and take a test drive and reserve your brand new electric ID4 today. When you walk through our doors, you feel like family. At Murdoch Volkswagen in Logan or online at murdochvw.com.
Call 866-628-3065 or see dealer for complete details. Offer expires 1/4/23.
You'll love the holiday specials and big selection when you shop at UNI Furniture. Got guests coming? How about their best-selling mattress, a Therapeutic Serene featuring a zone coil system, comfy stretch knit top, only $399 for the queen size. For Christmas, a TV? How about 50 different console choices from small to large with or without fireplaces? And over 200 chairs on display, including the best in recliners. They offer free layaway and prices you'll love. A local standard when it comes to furniture. There's always a better buy at UNI Furniture, UNI Downtown Logan.
Express your love for her this Christmas by presenting her a piece of diamond jewelry from S.E. Needham Jewelers. Diamond jewelry is a classic gift. A pair of beautiful diamond earrings will add to the sparkle in her eyes. Choose from a large selection of diamond stud earrings, all specially priced for the holidays. Also take advantage of our diamond earring trade-up program. With diamonds direct from Antwerp, Belgium, we offer our integrity price guarantee. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 7. S.E. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block at the sign of the clock.
One of this year's most popular and in-demand Christmas gifts is sure to be the e-bike. Find the best name in e-bikes, the Yamaha Power Assist bikes at Cash Honda Yamaha in Hyde Park. Yamaha e-bikes have superior technology and pure ride performance. Choose the model and style right for you. Yamaha All-Road e-bikes or Yamaha Mountain e-bikes, all backed up by Cash Honda Yamaha's full service department. Yamaha Power Assist e-bikes on display and on sale now at Cash Honda Yamaha at the Light in Hyde Park.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Friday on This Morning, America's First News. Some liberals claim they're unhappy with Twitter now that Elon Musk is the new owner. What are their alternative platforms? Also, it doesn't appear the Fed will be curtailing interest rate hikes anytime soon. We'll examine what that means for our finances and what to do if you're having trouble hearing what's being said on your TV. Friday on This Morning, America's First News. From 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM. Your station for news and talk.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Technical difficulty here in the studio. Punched that button to turn my mic on, and the button jumped out of the board and onto the table. I think I've got it fixed here. Always exciting when you're working with technology. I love this. It was published just yesterday at the USU Statesman, but it also reminds, a good reminder that students aren't always just, people that come here, go to school, and then leave. They are parts of our community. A spotlight by Jack Johnson, a student journalist at the USU Statesman, on student volunteerism throughout the year so far here in Utah or in Cache Valley, detailing, hundreds of students who have volunteered in various capacities throughout the valley to help, everything from helping homeless people in the valley to, actions that go towards the environment and sustainability, river cleanups, trail cleanups, and more. Also volunteering with the food pantry, other organizations helping families with financial strain. And it's a really give it a read. I've linked to it on our Facebook page. But again, a really good reminder that students contribute a lot, even if they weren't born here, don't plan to stay here, and are just here for 4 or 5 years of college and then leave. A lot of them, hundreds, in fact, at least, profiled on this story, do contribute back to our communities while they're here. And that is really cool. But also in the story, they provide some information that everyone in the Valley might be interested in. If you're looking for ways to help, 'tis the season, right? To think of those with less than us. And I mean, really, we should be doing that year-round. But if we can at least do it right now, that's something. But to think of those with less and look for ways to, if you either donate money or, as is more realistic for most of us, donate time in various volunteer efforts. So in the same story, Johnson provides a list of current holiday and even first of the year volunteer opportunities you can look out for. Again, I've linked to this list on our Facebook page, courtesy of student journalists at the USU Statesman, and I love that they've taken the time to do this. But if you want to volunteer, for example, with homeless people, we spotlighted them here on the show just before their official launch at the first of this month. The William A. Bernard Warming Center is officially up and running. If you want to hear our interview with the daughter of William Bernard, who was in our studio just before they launched, that is available via our podcast at the Podcastic service. Search for KVA News for the People and hit subscribe there. The Warming Center is up and running. It's a shelter for homeless individuals within the community, offering them by arrangement a place to stay out of the cold. Recognizing that many homeless people in Cache Valley are families that are temporarily without a place to stay. Arrangements can be made to utilize this warming center as a temporary home when you're in transition or whatever else it might be. They're working closely with other organizations as well, like the Family Place in CAPSA, to make best use of this. And they are looking for volunteers, and it is a unique volunteering opportunity because this does mean that most volunteers they're looking for someone who can be available at least part of the way through the night, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. or when they're looking for volunteers. So it's been tough for them to find the volunteer staff they need. If you'd like to help them out, links on our Facebook page again. If you are a young person who wants to, also burn some calories, USU's Christensen Office of Social Action and Sustainability is looking for volunteers from the community, both student and general Cache Valley community, to shovel snow in driveways for elderly families who can't do it themselves, and disabled individuals who maybe need a little help clearing a sidewalk here and there. You can volunteer via the link, which is justserve.org. They've set that up for that specific effort. If you want to help with snow removal, you can even sign up to be a part of spring cleanup and fall leaf removal for these same families. So an opportunity there. You could volunteer your time actually creating kits for people in need, clothing kits. Clothing kit usually includes, hats, socks, hoodies, new underwear sealed in a package, hygiene items, and more. That is something that's being done, especially children's kits right now are in need. More information about that also at justserve.org, the website. But there is some need for people to help build those kits through various organizations who distribute them here in northern Utah. You can actually drop gifts by a giving tree throughout the valley. We talked about these last week with the executive director of the Family Place here in the studio. These giving trees are all over throughout the valley, and you can literally just place a boxed item under there. They're then transferred and sent to the people who need them through various nonprofit organizations here in the valley. Lifting Hands International is doing a giving tree donation drive themselves in Logan. You can get some ideas for what they're looking for and how you can help them also at the justserve.org website. Click on Lifting Hands there in the projects section, and you'll see details on that. The Children's Service Society of Utah is a program that helps families who are raising a relative's child. for whatever reason. The parents are just unable to. There are sometimes stories of parents being incarcerated or parents having a drug problem, unable to care for the children, so they end up with grandparents or an aunt or an uncle. And those families oftentimes are dealing with this. They're not prepared for it. It can be a financial strain on their own family. And you can help. They're always looking for financial donations or buying presents for children, especially this time of year. And that is a program that's run through, again, this is the Christmas Assistance for Grand Families is the official name of the title. The Children's Service Society of Utah operates right out of downtown Logan. You can find them at 95 West, 100 South, or contact Josie Fielding at 801-803-1488 or Josie at cssutah.org. Also, again, justserve.org is a great place to do that, or to find out more about that. So I love this list. There's a lot more. I've just scanned some of the items here, but this is just a really cool thing that USU student journalists put together, highlighting volunteer opportunities that oftentimes aren't getting as much attention here in the Valley, and all of that as a way to spotlight the volunteer hours already committed throughout Cache Valley over the last several months by USU students. This is a great story at the USU Statesman. I've linked to it on our Facebook page, written by student journalist Jack Johnson. And again, a lot of the items I've mentioned here and many, many more with links included on how you can volunteer this holiday season and even into the new year in that story linked on our Facebook page. We'll be back with more of KVNU's For the People right after this.
Hi, this is Scott Howder. At Allen Mortuaries, we're mindful of the challenges and changes families who have lost loved ones experience during the holidays. We're also aware of the love, hope, and generosity of others. You are in our thoughts and prayers this holiday season, and we're also available to provide a measure of support whenever needed. We're always here to help. It's what we've been doing for over 80 years. Sincerely wishing you happy holidays from all of us at Allen Mortuaries. Then, now, always.
So many times at the end of the year we hear, wow, had I known, I would have come in sooner. Anyway, can we get it done before the end of the year? Hi, it's Dr. Brandon Preby from Logan Dental Associates and Cherry Creek Dental in Richmond. We want to help you utilize your benefits and get the best care possible without pain or discomfort and make it affordable. Often insurance or health savings is part of that plan. Please call today for your appointment with Dr. Taylor, Larson, Harris, or Preby. Let's get you the care you need before the end of the year. Cherry Creek Dental in Richmond or Logan Dental Associates in Logan.
Did you build a new home? Regardless of how clean your builder was, your ducts will have a variety of construction debris in them. Debris like sawdust, flooring pieces, sheetrock dust, and more. You do not want to move into your home with that debris in the ductwork. Call the Duct Hunter and get on the schedule today. Call the Duct Hunter at 770-4813.
We are the Duct Hunter. Breathe better, save money, protect your home. We are the Duct Hunter.
He won't come. He's too busy.
Jenny, of course he'll come.
Happy birthday!
Dad!
I know. You guys didn't think I'd make it, but come on. Could I really miss my son's birthday? Here you go, Dan.
Thanks, Dad. But today's Jenny's birthday.
Give me that. Happy birthday, Jenny!
Need to get closer to your family?
Nice football, Dad.
Give your family everything. Give them your time. From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Hey, that's one nice new bike, Josie.
Yeah, birthday present. Rides really smooth, too. Oh, and I see you finally got a new helmet.
I did. Bought it cheap online.
Love those side wings.
Hey, are you hungry?
Yeah, I'm starving. And need some water, too.
Okay, follow me. We'll turn off here.
I'm right behind you.
Hey, watch the cars. They can be crazy.
Teddy! No! Are you okay? Teddy! Somebody do something!
I called 911. They should be here soon.
Was this young man hit by a car?
Yes, and I'm concerned because his helmet is smashed and cracked open.
It's a brand new helmet.
It's probably a fake.
Please help him.
Fakes cause real harm. You're smart. Buy smart.
Go for real.
Brought to you by the National Crime Prevention Council and the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office.
Did you know? No. Well, you might have. I know I didn't know until reading this news today. The origin of Carol of the Bells. This is a Christmas classic, heard a lot this time of year. More popular, actually, with choirs and traveling carolers. Not exactly the type of classic Christmas music that a person puts on and cranks up in the home while they're cooking dinner or what have you, or as background music as a party, at a party. But this is a very well-known Christmas classic, Carol of the Bells. But I was today years old before I learned that it is not an original. This well-known holiday tune is actually adapted. I've linked to the story on this from AP News. It's actually adapted from a Ukrainian protest song. A Ukrainian composer wrote this tune, the melody, that became Carol of the Bells, in an original composition titled, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but I believe it is Shrekdik. Shrekdrik. And it was a New Year's. It was intended for New Year's. But it doubled as kind of a secretive cry for independence from Ukrainians in the aftermath of World War I. The translation of Shrekdrik is The Little Swallow, and it was arranged by composer Mikola Leontovich in 1916. But the lyrics were a secret. The tune was well known as a New Year's Eve song in Ukraine. Even then. But the rebels knew the lyrics. It quickly made its way into Ukrainian folk music halls of fame with its popularity. But the Little Swallow name has some ties to, the etymology of that goes back to a word for the sun god. And there's a reason for all this in Ukrainian mythology, emphasizing bounty and success and prosperity, basically, or the whole point of the Little Swallow title. But again, this was kind of a secret protest song. Fascinating stuff. As the song gained popularity for a New Year's Eve feast staple, the news slowly came out, and finally, in a 1925 book, Ukrainian Folk Songs, A Historical Treaty, this true story was told. The composer came forward for an interview for that book and said, the forces of nature came together in this melody in my head while watching A Little Swallow, and I decided to write it. The lyrics I wrote for another reason, and they remained a secret for many years. In 1918, Ukraine declared its independence and hoping to be recognized by the rest of the world for its autonomy. In that declaration, as the borders were redrawn as part of the peace treaty that ended World War I. And timely again today as we see threats on Ukraine's independence again rising in the news with Russia's invasion a century later, basically. But again, this song, Carol of the Bells, as we know it, originally began as a Ukrainian protest song. And here's just a bit of a 1919 recording of this being sung by Ukrainian protesters. Again, Carol of the Bells as we know it, not an original, adapted from a Ukrainian song, direct translation of the title, The Little Swallow. That was actually a protest song calling for recognition of Ukraine's independence from the borders drawn and forced on the country by the peace treaty that ended World War I. Fascinating history there of a song we all know, but again, I just learned that history today. Tomorrow on the program, Cache County Clerk and Auditor Jess Bradfield will join us to explain his decision made 20 minutes after leaving a council meeting this week to resign the office 90 days from last Tuesday. What it means for the office why the 90 days and more. Jess Bradfield, now outgoing, unfortunately, Cache County Clerk and Auditor, will be here to talk about that and some audits he'll be releasing as Clerk and Auditor in January. Also, the movie show with Andy Morgan, part of tomorrow's show. Andy will be joining us at 5, and we'll be talking about, yes, Avatar 2, The Way of Water. Andy saw it, what he thought, tomorrow on the program.
Station for news and talk. KVNU Logan, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.